In this lesson, we are looking at evaluating functions. So we'll look at function notation. Replaces the output y with f of x. So where we used to have y equals x plus 7, function notation, we replace the y with f of x, and it still reads x plus 7. So we basically are using notation to replace y. F of x is not f times x or f multiplied by x. It's notation. So f of x means the output of the function f when the input is x. So f of 1 represents the value of f at x equal 1. And that's our input to the function. So if we were looking at our original function at the top, f of x equals x plus 7, if we had f of 1, we would replace x with 1 here, and we would also replace x with 1 here. Plus 7, so then the value of the function f at an input of 1 would be 8. So f of 1 we said before replaces y, so this really says y equals 8. And then we said we replace the x with 1, so x is 1. So if we were to write that as an ordered pair, x comma y, the x value is what we input, that's 1, and the y value is our f of x, or f of 1 in this case, is our actual output. So this is the ordered pair from our function. So if we look at letter A, we are going to perform the evaluation 3 times, once with 0, once with 1/2, and once with -2. It is very important that you replace the x with parentheses when you actually input the value. So we have f of 0, so we're going to have f of 0. We replaced x with 0, so we replace x with 0 on the other side as well. So where there's an x, you put a 0. And then we're going to use f of 0's notation so that we know that the input is 0 for our function. And then we perform the math. 8 plus 4 times 0 is, 0. And then f of 0 equals 8. So the value of the function at an input of 0 is 8. So basically, if we were to write the ordered pair, the input is 0 and the output is 8. Then, if we have f of 1/2, same function as we have up here, 8 plus 4, and then instead of x, we're going to put in 1/2. Again, this is notation. This is telling us that the function at an input value of 1/2 equals 8 plus half of 4 is 2. So at an x value of 1/2, we have a y value of 10. So that would be an ordered pair. 1/2 is the x and 10 is the y. And then our last, we'll just draw a line here. We have f of -2 equals 8 plus, and this is where it is very important that when you replace the x, you use parentheses. Otherwise, it looks like you're subtracting 2, and in this case, we are multiplying by 2. So we have f of -2 equals 8 plus 4 times -2 is a -8, and 8 minus 8 is 0. So in this case, our ordered pair, our input is -2 and our output is 0. On letter B, if we look at f of 0, this is actually our x value. So we go to x of 0. So we go to 0 and then we find the y value. F of 0 is actually the y value. So we go up right here and the y value is 1, 2, 3. So in this case, f of 0 is 3. That means that our input was 0 and our output was 3. So that's our ordered pair. This is what our answer is. So let's try f of 1/2 equals, so we're going to go over here to 1/2, which is right there, and it actually hits the red graph at 0. So in this case, f of 1/2 is 0. And that would mean my input was 1/2 and my output is 0. So this is my x and this is my y. If I look at f of -2, I'm going to an x value of -2, which is over here, and then I'm going to go all the way up here and find the y value on the actual red graph. So that goes up to 4. So in this case, this is 4. So that would mean my input was -2 and my output was 4. Okay, let's go ahead and look at our next two functions. This is where it's very important to use parentheses when we're substituting. So let's start off with f of 0 equals, and wherever I have an x, so x squared minus 4 times x, I'm going to put parentheses, and then I'm going to put in what my input value is, which is 0. So f of 0 equals 0 squared is 0, minus 4 times 0 is 0, so we have 0 minus 0, and that means f of 0 equals 0. So that would be a 0.00. If we put in f of 1/2, then again we have x squared minus 4 times x, and we're going to plug in 1/2 into both. Again, on the left-hand side is just notation. We're not dividing and solving for f. We're just going to leave it so that we know the input is 1/2. 1/2 squared is 1/4, because 1/2 times 1/2 is 1/4. Minus 4 times 1/2 is 2. And then f of 1/2, if I take -2 and add 1/4, I have -1 3/4. So that would be the point. Input x would be 1/2, and the output, the y, would be -1 3/4. And then we can try f of -2. And if you don't use parentheses, this is where you'll get the problem wrong. So I have x squared minus 4 times x. So I have a -2 here and a -2 here. If you don't use parentheses, you'll get this part wrong. So be very careful and use parentheses, because -2 squared is -4 and -2 squared is 4. So in this case, it's a +4. If you don't use parentheses, you'll get a -4 in the calculator. And then -4 times -2 becomes a +8. So f of -2 is equal to 12. So that would be the point. -2 is the input and 12 is the output. Looking at letter D, we have f of x equals -2x plus 1. So we have f of 0 equals -2 times x plus 1. Again, I'm putting in the parentheses. Instead of x, I put 0. So f of 0 equals -2 times 0 is 0, plus 1 is just 1. So this becomes an input of 0, an output of 1. And then f of 1/2, -2 times x plus 1. And again, x is 1/2. So f of 1/2 equals -2 times 1/2 is -1 plus 1. So that means that f of 1/2, -1 plus 1 is 0. So that would be an input of 1/2, an output of 0. And then last, I have f of -2. -2 And so we don't have negative 2 minus 2, it's negative 2 times negative 2. Make sure you're using parentheses. Negative 2 times negative 2 is 4 plus 1. So that would mean my f of negative 2 equals 5. And again, that point would be negative 2, 5.